Hello there, this is Douglas Rumbaugh, and welcome to episode 5 of my Introduction to Web Hosting video series. In the last episode, we got HTTP working and the website served. You can see back here. Now, let's take the necessary steps to secure this thing using HTTPS. We are going to be using Let's Encrypt as our certificate authority and the Acme tool to deal with all of the certificate stuff. And this is actually going to be not very difficult to do. Acme makes this incredibly simple. So we're going to have to set up our Acme configuration file. We are going to have to do a temporary setup of the web server to support Acme properly. And then we run Acme, that gets us our certificate, and then we simply configure our web server to redirect all of our traffic over port 443, which is HTTPS, and tell it where the certificates are. And then we should be off to the races. So let's get right into it. We are going to have to begin by creating a file called acme-client.conf. And this is going to be in Etsy. So I'm going to once again do sudo su just to get into root to facilitate not typing sudo all the time. And we're going to vim acme client.conf. Just like this. And at the moment it does not exist. So what I'm going to do, because this is a lot of typing, is I'm just going to do a copy paste from the handbook here, like so, and we'll have to make a couple of tweaks to it. This is the thing from the handbook. We're setting up our Let's Encrypt and Let's Encrypt staging, and then down here is where we register our domains. So remember how we have our canonical and our non-canonical domain, the one that redirects everything? We need to make sure that both of them are accounted for here. I put the canonical domain here and the alternative, the non-canonical one, down here. So the way that we currently have our server configured, remember we changed it as a demonstration so that the not ww one is canonical. So I'm going to go ahead and stick with that here. And we'll say douglasrumbaugh.xyz is the name. And then for the alternative, www.douglasrumbaugh.xyz, just like that. It's important to have both, otherwise you may have some issues. And then make sure we also change the stuff down here. So that's going to be douglasrumbaugh.xyz.key. These are just file names, so we're going to refer to these in my HTTPD configuration file when we get there. It's important to get this stuff right because Let's Encrypt has a rate limit on their API. So if you don't get this set up exactly right and you run it and it errors out, you only get so many shots before you have to wait a significant amount of time before trying again. So be particularly careful here. It can slow you down quite a bit if you have to wait for the rate limit to expire before you try it. But that should be all the tweaks that we need in here. So just change the domain everywhere it appears to whatever your domain happens to be. Now we're going to have to create a couple of directories to accommodate Acme. We need an Acme directory. We need Etsy SSL, Acme private. And these are the directories to contain those files that we just did. And we're also going to need Acme in our web root. Now the reason we want Acme in our web server's root is because we're actually going to set up an Acme redirect in our server in just a moment, which is going to be very, very important. This is part of how Acme works. And this is where you run into those rate limit issues, is if you don't quite get the server set up properly for this and it errors out a couple of times, that's when you have to wait. So we're going to point our web server to this new route. So let's do that. httpd.conf. Here is the stuff that we set up. Remember, we have our canonical one here, and then this is just a redirect to it. So what we want to do is we want to add the Acme stuff to our canonical one. And that's going to be done like so. We're going to say location /dot well-known /Acme challenge /star. New set of curly braces. And this is going to have a root of Acme, that directory that we just created earlier. And we need to do this as well per the documentation. Request strip 2, just like that. And then our redirect down here remains the same. So let's verify that we are good. Configuration OK. And we'll restart it. Now, this shouldn't affect the behavior of our website at all. However, it will allow us now to run the Acme client program, which is going to set up our certificate that we need in order for SSL to work. All right, and then with all of that stuff done, it should just be a simple matter of running the Acme client command, making sure to use the same name here, same domain name here, as you did in the configuration file. So what I mean by that is if we look at Acme client, make sure that this is the input to the Acme client command. So run Acme client, throw it in verbose mode so we can see some useful output, and specify our name, our domain. And this should run, and Lord willing, we will not have any issues. Perfect. Looks like we're in good shape. So now all we have to do is go back in and update our HTTPD conf file to refer to these certificates and redirect everything to HTTPS. So let's go ahead and do that. We are going to need to do a couple of things here. Let's start by just creating our sort of canonical endpoint here, which is going to be our bare domain. Now with that said, we are going to update this to now, rather than listening on port 80, we're going to listen on 443. Root stays the same. This Acme challenge stuff stays in here for renewal purposes, I believe. And then we want to specify where our certificate is located. So we'll add a little TLS section here. And this is where we specify those file names that we specified in our Acme client configuration. So we're going to do certificate etc ssl douglasrumbaugh.xyz fullchain.pem is our certificate. And we also want the key, which we put in etc ssl private douglasrumbaugh.xyz .key. Just like that. Now, theoretically, we should be able to access this over HTTPS now. So we'll check our configuration file. Looks like it's good. And restart HTTPD. And so now if we come up here and go to HTTPS, as you can see, we are now connected to our website over HTTPS with the padlock and all. That's good. Now we just have to make sure that we redirect properly, because right now if I come in on HTTP, I get an error. And if I come in on HTTP www dot, I get an error. So And if I come in on HTTPS www dot, I get an error. So we have a whole bunch of stuff that we have to fix yet. But if we come in on our canonical domain with HTTPS, we get it. So it really is as simple as that. Now we just have to set up some redirects. So first things first, let's repurpose this redirect to take our canonical domain. So we're going to listen on our canonical domain on port 80, and we will return it to our canonical domain over HTTPS. So this should make it so that if we try and connect to our canonical domain over HTTP, it redirects it for us. So let's test this out. So now if I come in here and I access over HTTP, it should, there we go. Took a second, but it worked. It should take us to the HTTPS. So HTTP redirects to HTTPS. Perfect. And now we just need to deal with our www. So first things first, let's just listen on port 80. And again, we can do a block return 301 HTTPS. Like that. So if we come in on HTTP, touching the www one, it should now redirect us to the bare domain over HTTPS. Once again, let's give that a shot. So www.douglasrumble.xyz, and we are redirected correctly. Perfect. And now finally, let's get our www over SSL redirected properly. So for this one, we're going to need our TLS port listening, and we want to copy our certificates over as well, like that. And then we can just do the same block return 301. Like that. But since we're listening here on TLS, or so SSL versus TLS, SSL is the old thing. It's secure socket layer. TLS is transport layer security. It's technically the correct term for it now, but the two TLS versus SSL are often used interchangeably. So just be aware there is technically a difference. I believe SSL is the old technology and TLS is the new, but they basically refer to the same thing, and they're both used to get HTTPS going. So let's restart and verify that works. So now I should be able to come in on https://www.douglasrumble.xyz and have it redirect as well. Perfect. So we now have all 4 possible variations on our domain name redirecting properly over SSL. And that's all there is to it. So we now have a working website that serves over HTTPS. We're not quite done yet, though. In the next episode, we're going to take a look at setting up the firewall on this server, because right now this thing is wide open. And it's probably a good idea to configure a firewall so we only let in the traffic that we want. So that's going to be the topic of the next episode. Hope you found this interesting, and I will see you over there.